Mr. Higgins, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the ranking member for the leadership in drafting this choice legislation that would better serve our veterans. And Mr. Secretary, I thank you for your continued dedication towards the same cause. The newly established coordination between the DOD and the VA is long overdue, and it's just great to hear as a veteran. And I believe this will help ensure a seamless transition for our veterans. It's just common sense approach, which the bipartisan nature of this committee and your own dedicated efforts certainly reflect a common sense approach that we're all looking for. I was pleased to see that the VA included in its draft of care legislation provisions allowing for the certain use of urgent care or walk-in medical facilities. Would you please speak to how you and the VA envision the use of urgent care facilities for our veterans?
Yeah. This would be an added new benefit. We think having a veteran have to drive 100 miles to get a lab test or a flu shot or something simple for a minor illness just doesn't make sense. It's not good for veterans. So we would add a benefit. A national network of urgent care would be developed by our third party. We would allow veterans 2 visits a year under essentially their current structure, which would be no payment for service-connected veterans and a small copay that currently exists for non-service connected veterans. After 2 visits a year, there would be a additional or a copay that would be required so that we could control the cost of a new benefit, but still allow veterans to have access to these services in their community.
And this would, in its very nature, expand the choice available to our veterans. And there's a large difference between driving 5 blocks to have a sprained ankle treated or driving 50 miles or 100 miles and waiting 9 hours to get the same treatment.
Exactly. Yep. This doesn't exist today, so it would be a new benefit.
Yeah, a reasonable copay is certainly something that most veterans would not argue about. I was also pleased to see the VA included provisions to enable medical facility sharing with other departments, as well as expanded and enhanced use lease authority. Could you please elaborate on the VA's future vision for facility sharing and extended use leases, sir?
Yes. Well, first of all, I think you're absolutely right, Congressman, that there's never been a closer relationship and better working relationship with the Department of Defense, and I have to thank Secretary Mattis for that spirit of cooperation. We now have discussions going on all over the country about where the Department of Defense has excess capacity and where we have veterans that need care and services and vice versa. And so we are working to figure out what makes sense for veterans, active service members, and the taxpayers, and coming up with a number of different plans and facilities. And so what you're going to see, I think we're asking for some ability, even in this legislation, to avoid having to exchange bills. We're probably spending more on administrative costs than we are on taking care of our veterans in this case. So we want to try to decrease some of the barriers and regulations to doing more of this work together.
Thank you, sir, for your answers. And I again commend you and your staff for working tirelessly as we endeavor to reform the VA and provide greater service for our veterans that certainly deserve it. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.